You're listening to the AfterBuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your number one source for after-show entertainment.
Very good game, Johnson.
From the AfterBuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, and streaming live on Ustream, this is AfterBuzz TV for Intervention. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest intervention news and gossip. If you'd like to buzz in on tonight's show, you can buzz us at 424-256-1729. That's 424-256-1729. And now, picking up where the show leaves off and the buzz continues, it's AfterBuzz TV for Intervention.
Hey, everybody. It's Tamara and Michelle here with you for Intervention Season 11, Episode 12. Jeanna. Oh, my gosh.
I don't blame you, Jeanna. I don't blame you.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, that's where we're coming from on this one. So let's just get right into it. Jeanna, 25 years old from Madras, Oregon, where I have been recently. I actually went through Madras a month ago. I was on my way up to Washington State with my sister. We did the drive.
Mm-hmm.
And we went. They actually showed the Crooked River.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And I have many pictures. I'll show them to you. I took some really beautiful pictures of the Crooked River.
I know where that is. I was just there.
I was just there a month ago. And Madras is kind of in Central Oregon, just north of Bend, which is a beautiful place. And my sister and I spent the night in Bend and then went through Madras, continuing north.
It's just called Bend?
Bend is actually, yeah, that's where we spent. It's I think the bend in the river.
That would make sense.
Yeah. So Jeanna is an IV meth user, and the IV ones are the ones that are the most difficult for you and I to handle.
Yeah.
We really have challenges with watching it. You know, I've mentioned it before. I donate blood. And I can't even watch. I really can't watch them stick a needle in my own arm.
No,
you know,
I don't know how you can feel that and be okay.
Well, it hurts, but you you go in and and all the nurses or phlebotomists who take out your blood. They're like, ready, and I turn my head away and they go, "What's up?" And I go, I can't watch. You can take my blood all you want, but I can't watch you do it.
Oh my God.
So I really don't. There would be a lot of motivation for me to be an IV.
Don't you think about it while they're doing it and then you freak out?
Yeah. Well, you and I both, though, we, cover our eyes because
I can't.
So
I tried a little bit this episode. I just can't. She just sticks it in. How does she know where to put it? She just sticks it in her body.
Yeah, it's
troubling.
It's hard to watch. But so they said that she's been addicted for 4 years, but she's been on drugs for a much longer time.
Since she was 13.
As we were watching, yeah. But now she does 3 times a day. And it was so interesting, the things that she said. A lot of times, especially meth addicts, but, a lot of the addicts, they talk about how the drug makes me feel numb. It makes me forget. I forget my troubles. But she was talking about how it makes her feel antsy, and she liked the antsy feeling.
Yeah,
that was something I'd never heard before. Had you heard that?
No, never. Usually it's mellower. They just hang out or they just zone off.
Yeah.
Antsy and
energy. She said it gives me energy.
So she could walk around for 7 days straight without sleeping.
Okay.
And so it's what does she do? Some people, when they're really depressed or something's happening, they sleep for a long time.
Right. Yeah. That's a really common way of dealing with any kind of depression or pain is just stay in bed.
She does the opposite.
She took the active approach.
And exactly. Very active.
Very active approach.
She awake for 7 days at a time.
I literally can't even imagine that.
That's a whole week.
The real serious hardcore pain of finals, I maybe had 1 or 2 days where I slept 2 hours. And that was that was nasty for me.
You could not do that sober or not on meth.
Right.
You'd have to be on meth.
But yeah, So yeah, when she's on the hustle, she was up for 7 days. 7 days. And that's a really common one with meth, that, it keeps you awake for a long time because it gives you that energy. It takes away her pain. She talked about how, my feet hurt. I can't stand up. My shoulders, I'm just dead tired. And I shoot the meth. And she got the cough, which we learned about the cough just recently.
Yes.
That's when when you get that feeling in your chest, it's the good stuff. And it gives you energy, and you can just keep going for days at a time.
So I wonder, she has to keep taking it to stay up for so long.
Yes, of course.
So obviously she's walking around as she does, and she'll go for a walk for 6 hours, and she's doing a lot of stuff to get the drugs.
Right.
Including prostituting herself.
Right. Well, and, just think about that. They didn't really talk about this, but think about the kind of stressors occur within your body when you don't sleep for 7 days.
Yeah.
I mean, she talked about her feet hurting if you're walking around for hours at a time, and literally how, what happens to your feet. The calluses that you could probably get cuts on your feet. Just there are times when if I don't sleep enough, my eyes get really dry and sore because my eyes just haven't been closed long enough,
exactly.
right? So imagine that compounded by 7 days. And, all of the other things, how rest is so important to the body. One of the things that happens when you rest is that your iron increases.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And conversely, when you don't sleep enough, your iron decreases. So, just your basic core energy is missing. So you have to replace that with something else. And so it's that perpetuating cycle that's so hard to get out of.
So long. And now she's been addicted, however you can tell that, and taking it since she was 13. Her body must hate her. She must have the body of a 70-year-old.
Yeah. We talked about how she's 25 years old and looks so much older than that.
So much older.
She looked
25.
easily in her 40s, wouldn't you say?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah.
She had a baby when she was 21?
No. Oh, yeah. 21. No. Baby, 17. She was 17 when her baby was born.
Oh, yes. Baby 17.
Yeah.
And she got her life together, and she got an apartment, and she lived on her own from everyone, and she had inspiration and all that stuff. And then...
Well, but actually, before we get to that, I want to talk about that, again, just talking about the physical thing, teeth rotted, face broken out, the vanity issues. That's the reason I would never take meth, because it mess up my teeth.
Made you break out.
Yeah, exactly. And I just can't have that. I have enough breakouts just as I am.
Exactly.
But also her mom talked about her meth-induced psychosis that occurs on occasion. We saw a little bit of that, but when they went showed the baby picture, and her baby picture, the one that they focused in on in the center, when we looked at that, I said, gosh, that is just the epitome of innocence. Mm-hmm. She just had, I don't know, like oatmeal coming down the side of her face,
something.
and just this purity and innocence on her face. She looked to be about 2 years old and was so beautiful. But mom addicted to meth before she was born, and really got bad when Jeanna turned 11. Other kids in the family, which we saw Micah, but I don't think any of the other people the blonde woman wasn't a sibling of hers.
The aunt. That one?
Well, I didn't see I didn't see her title card because I was writing. I have 3 pages of notes on this episode.
I know,
just kept
me too. I know.
I was missing things, but
it was so crazy. But she's the aunt, and she said there's no such thing as boundaries in that family.
Right, exactly. Because so the home was it sounded like just a drug den. Micah talked about we didn't have enough money for food. We didn't have enough money for
running
water at times. And drugs were everywhere.
That's such neglect. That's
awful. Right. And so Jeanna was effectively a parent to her younger siblings, and she thought of Micah as my firstborn child, which is an incredible burden to a child.
Yeah.
To have to go through that. We actually have that in my own family, not because of drugs, but just because of situations. My mom was actually the youngest of 7 or 8 kids.
Whoa.
I get the families mixed up, but She was the youngest, but her mother had cancer when my mother was very young. And so my mother was taking care of her older brothers and sisters. You know, she was the one who was making meals and things like that. And so my mom kind of, you know, missed out on the childhood
But your mom
in a way.
was the youngest?
Yeah. Yeah, because she was the one that was at home. The older siblings were, you know, out at college or with jobs. And so they would, you know, come home at the end of the day or on weekends or whatever. Grammy would be in bed dealing with her cancer, and my mom would have to cook and have to clean and all that kind of stuff as a young child. And so that burden that's placed on a child it's so sad to me, because one of the things that I some of my family members make fun of me because I have such great reverence and nostalgia for this, but I think it's a kid's job to be a kid.
No, totally.
To be innocent, to play, to have fun, to have an imagination, to learn things, but their job is to be carefree. And when a child is put into this situation of having to care for others with such huge responsibility, it just takes all of that innocence away from them. And I just think that's wrong. And it breaks my heart every time I see it. Every time.
She needs to be protected.
Yeah.
And here she is protecting her sister.
Right. Exactly.
And she has no parents. And she points out, and to her younger sister, I had no childhood.
Yeah, that's right.
And now she's looking for who cheated her out of it.
Right. And why mom chose drugs over me.
And that's interesting, which that was her thinking. She was like, I wonder what the big deal is about. I wonder what mom's so crazy about. It must be awesome.
So I better find out.
Yeah.
And one of mom's friends, who I want to kill that guy.
What is wrong with that guy?
Here, you want to hit?
Even though you're really messed up, I mean, okay, he was awful, obviously, but what? You offer meth to a 13-year-old?
I don't even, obviously I don't understand that, but it's it's so, it's a betrayal of so many things. It's a betrayal of childhood. It's a betrayal of adulthood, responsibility, caring, boundaries, all of those things. And it's just, it's so wrong. It's
Strangers
so wrong.
in the house. Strangers in the. Have you heard of the play Miss Julie?
Mm-mm.
It's by Sternberg, but it was translated into English by Patrick Marber, who wrote Closer, which was that movie with Natalie Portman.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, but anyway, he just translated it, and it was at the first part of the century. Anyway, there's a line in that I really like, and it's a child doesn't have the sophistication to protect itself.
Right.
Yeah, that's it. It's they just don't have it. And she didn't have it.
And
she wanted it.
And they shouldn't have to.
Yeah,
That's,
exactly.
You know, I mean, that's a stand I take. They shouldn't have to. And you know, so this guy said, I think it would be awesome to give a 13-year-old some drugs.
You want to try some?
And mom allowed it. And so off and on from age 13 until 17.
I'm sure she'd just do it with her.
Right. Sure. Because that would be, we've seen this before. That's how mom and daughter would bond.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't any other connection between them, no other appropriate connection between them. And Jeanna was so craving that connection with her mom. She went, well, if that's how I'm going to get it, that's how I'll get it. I'm sure that's how it went down.
Yeah.
And then at age 17, she got pregnant, had Nicholas, and quit drugs.
She was inspired. She quit drugs.
And was a great mom, and that was the thing she wanted. She just
her
wanted...
whole life, that's what she wanted.
Yeah. So...
Damn, she got dealt a bad hand.
Oh, my God.
That's all that she wanted. She wanted what her sister has.
Right, exactly.
Micah?
Exactly. Micah. So then she met... This is where it all... We thought we were... in hell before. We thought it was as bad as it was going to get. This was the turn that we were absolutely not expecting.
Yeah, totally.
And you and I were both crying during this. It was, you know, you'd have to be a little bit heartless to not be touched by this. But, you'd have to be a lot heartless. So she met Donnie. She was married. She thought she was in love. She was happy. And Micah said she didn't know what how did she put it? She said something like an adult relationship is supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Because of course, why would she? Because at 13, an adult was sharing drugs with
And
her.
her dad was in prison.
Right, exactly. And younger than that, other people were just hanging out at her house, and there was all sorts of, it was a den of iniquity that she was living in. Dad was in prison. She had no role models for what parenting, adult relationships, parent-child relationships, none of that. She didn't know what any of that looked like. And the 5 months after they were married, but they didn't say how old Nicholas was. I never got the sense of how old Nicholas was at any of this. But Donnie called and says, Nicholas has fallen and hit his head.
Yeah, and that's where I thought it had gotten bad.
Yeah.
And that he had to go to the hospital and all that stuff. I was like, oh my God, that's awful.
So sad because weren't you thinking, okay, Donnie's on drugs.
Yeah.
Donnie let him fall out of the crib or something like that.
Exactly.
And there was a terrible accident. And
from neglect, like you were saying.
Right, because it happens so often.
But it was so far from neglect.
Oh my God.
And they said to preface it, he was drinking a lot, and that's why I thought, oh, he totally like accidentally dropped him or something.
Right.
But he had been torturing him.
Brutally tortured Nicholas. His body was mangled. His head was so swollen that his brain wasn't getting any blood. And then he slipped into a coma and ultimately died. And what Jeanna found out was there were blood spatters on the wall, blood spatters in the bathroom. And so God only knows what happened to this poor baby before
Oh my God.
before he died. And then Donnie decided he was going to clean this, child up and change his clothes so that he could kind of cover his tracks, it seems to me. I don't think he was trying to make him presentable for his mom in any way. I just think he was trying to cover his his tracks. And
the fact that he thought that was even gonna happen is ridiculous. He pled guilty
and went to prison for life, which is where he should be.
Exactly.
Forever and ever, amen.
And she left her kid there, because I'm sure she was neglected a lot.
Yeah.
So I'm sure it wasn't a big deal. And
she left the guy. She thought I'm sure she thought because she wasn't on drugs at the time, she thought things were okay. And clearly they weren't. But so he pled guilty, he went to prison, and she went crazy.
Totally lost it.
Rightly so.
Totally. That's totally understandable.
This was the place where you and I both kind of went, we didn't talk about this, but after on our way into the studio, we talked about, I get it. Like we've seen this pain so many times. It's almost always, the addiction is almost always based in, some kind of an incident that has occurred. A lot of times it's abuse, physical or sexual abuse, abandonment, all of those things. But this one is so much worse than anything that we've ever seen.
And so specific.
Yeah.
It's just, you can't compare that and the way she was talking about it. It's like she heard about it for the first time.
Yeah.
She just kept reliving it.
Yeah. And that combined with everything that happened before that, how her upbringing was, the fact that she didn't have really parents at all. She had drugs all around her all the time while growing up.
Strangers.
Started taking drugs herself at age 13. I mean, there were so many bad things laid out in front of her, and then this one comes up. How could you possibly cope with it in a normal way? It really wasn't possible. She was not capable of dealing with this in a normal way.
I would just think that she would just disintegrate. I don't know how. Yeah. How you would keep going.
Yeah. So there's so much in the story to talk about.
I know.
So she got arrested many times. This was 4 years ago that her son died. And he was clearly under 5 years old. He looked to be like 3 years old or something like that.
Yeah, 3 or 4.
Yeah. And so possibly he's been gone longer than he was even alive.
Yeah.
And she's still dealing with this. So arrested many times, was homeless, and she says, well, meth numbs me, because she feels guilty. She feels ashamed. She blames herself. And the thing that I think it was Micah said, and she won't let anyone help her through this.
Yeah.
And that's the big key.
She's the mother, so she's supposed to do that
Right.
after taking care of Micah.
Right.
It's like, why would she mess up?
Right.
And is how she thinks about it, but that's not her thing at all. But I think it's punishing herself.
Yes, of course. Of course. Because she wasn't there. She didn't do her job when she needed to do her job and didn't protect her baby. And that was the one thing she wanted.
I know.
Was to be a mom.
And now, how could she even be a mom now?
Yeah.
You know? Even if she had another kid, how could she not think
Right.
about...
Wouldn't you just be terrified the entire time?
Exactly. And yeah, if you were with someone or even left them with a babysitter, like you just never know. She was with someone that she loved and he did that.
Right.
So,
cared, trusted, and she wasn't on drugs.
Exactly. That's such a bad card.
Yeah, it was a terrible situation because she wasn't even on drugs and her baby died anyway.
And he was drunk.
Yeah.
Which is not why it happened. It happened because he was crazy.
Right.
But it's exactly his fault. He went out of his way to torture her child and kill him and then try and cover it up.
Mm-hmm. And then, obviously, then realized that wasn't going to happen. So, so then we move on to Dad, Troy.
With the iguana.
Right, with his iguana.
And the puppy.
Which I just find weird. I don't get the
It's
iguana
super
thing.
random.
Maybe it's an Oregon deal. I don't understand.
Probably.
I don't understand the love of an iguana. They're not fun to pet.
No.
I like
look
the furry,
scaly.
fuzzy little animals
The fuzzy ones are cute.
that are warm and snuggle up on you.
Yeah, not the ones with crazy eyeballs
Yeah.
and the tail.
and spines.
Yeah. Scaly. I don't know how. I'd never pet one.
Obviously, some people love them, and I'm glad that they're there for each other. But Dad's been released from prison on probation and can't be caught. He can't associate with someone who's dealing drugs, and she deals drugs
them,
sometimes. And so it was so interesting to see the two of them together because. He would if the camera was Jeanna, he'd always be looking over here, and she'd be talking to him, and he'd be like this or like this, just never looking at her. There was never any eye contact, never any connection between them, because I think probably he felt ashamed. He felt like he said it. I've let you down. I robbed you of a childhood. And here he is back. He's done his time. He's served his. Sentence and trying to bring back the possibility of a relationship, make amends and move along. And here's this daughter who's so messed up and he doesn't know what to do with it.
Yeah. So now he has to come back and deal with it. And he wasn't looking at her. It was like he was alone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in The Sixth Sense, that movie.
Yes.
And then you figure out that he was actually dead the whole time. It was like that. Then when you go back at it, they're not even looking at someone.
Not even.
When they just seem mad or something.
Next we meet, what was his name? Josh, who has the trailer.
Good friend Josh,
who I found this fascinating, that Josh and Troy look like the same person pretty much.
They do
Didn't
look
they?
alike. Yes. And
just a little bit younger version.
Troy seemed like they seemed to agree on the same point,
right?
Obviously.
Yeah.
But he was like, yeah, totally. Like, get out of the trailer. Get out.
Right.
If you don't follow the rules, whatever.
So
Josh didn't want to put on a shirt.
No, didn't want to put he's going to be on TV. So, go shirtless if you can.
Exactly.
Wouldn't you? Okay, no, I wouldn't.
No, God, no.
Oh, no way. No how, no. But okay, this dynamic I thought was one of the most compelling moments of the show was the conflict between Jeanna, Troy, and Josh. She comes out of her trailer. She's high, or she was high. So she was high, and Josh calls her on it. She's in the house, his house. And he says, you know what? You're high. I can tell you've been using. What's going on? And she's like, I don't know what you're talking about. And doing the thing with her hands, which
I
his
know.
giveaway. That's his giveaway. When she starts going like this.
And she's
I know
so
she's been using.
obviously high.
Yeah.
So obvious.
But the whole dynamic here was amazing because she starts bringing up she gets defensive because they've caught her doing drugs.
Yeah.
But then she talks about a man getting in her face because
Yeah.
Josh starts confronting her, right? And he's saying, you know, you're high, you've lied to me. He didn't say those exact words, but his come from was, you've lied to me, you violated the rules. There's
Get out.
You can't do it. Get out. And she says, look, you're a man and you're in my face, and I don't respond to that because when a man comes in my face, he murders my baby. That's where
what
she
said.
takes it to. And then Troy, the dad, says, oh, she's going to use her sob story again. And you and I both just went, we gasped.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it was Troy who also said, no, Josh said, get over it.
I know. Just right to
You
her
know
face.
what? Get over it.
Just
Honey,
right to her
I know
face.
your baby's dead. I know he's been brutally murdered and tortured. Get over it.
Get over it. And I like how she's obviously going to say, oh, why didn't you say that earlier? Otherwise, I would have gotten over it like a year ago.
Seriously, that's all I needed.
I can't. Yeah, just say that.
I get
of
it
course.
now. I'm okay. I'm getting over it.
I'll move on.
Right.
Watch me move on.
And, you know, they are obviously coming from exasperation. They're at their wit's end. They don't know how else to deal with it.
It's so damaging, it seems like.
Yeah, there's so many possibilities for pain in this interaction. She's so devastated about the loss of her child. She's devastated about not having a connection with her dad. Troy is also devastated and guilty about that. Josh is trying to be a friend, but he's trying to be a friend by giving her a place to stay, and then also trying to be a friend by telling her, you broke the rules, get out, you know, trying to keep her sober, but doesn't know how to deal with it. Obviously nobody in this relationship knows how to deal with that kind of loss. Who does know how to deal with that kind of loss? But the callousness with which they said, get over it, mourning time is over, she's going to deal the sob story
Morning
again.
time is over. Oh, I'm glad that it's what, your alarm goes off when
Right.
it's over.
But the thing is she's never mourned in the first place.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's not over. It hasn't even started yet.
Exactly. They were so incompetent on how to deal with that.
Yeah. But I mean, we can't blame them, but
I'm sure after a while it gets frustrating.
Of course. I've been there with other friends, not with this exact situation, but that exasperation comes and you don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And sometimes you can't regulate what comes out of your mouth.
Yeah, totally.
So, but I thought that was just it was an incredibly riveting interaction to watch the sickness go, you know, manifest in all of them, and just that was really sad.
That's
it was
true.
really hard to see. So then we see Micah, and I think this was where they were sitting at the park afterwards in the daytime at the picnic table in beautiful Madras, Oregon, in the
It was so pretty.
Mount Hood, I think it is. It's in the background there. It's really a gorgeous area.
You know Oregon well.
Well, I did the trip that I did a month ago. I've done many times. We used to live in Northern California, and we would do that drive up to go see my grandparents, and so I've been through Bend many times. But I thought it was fascinating. So we're figuring Micah's maybe 5 or 6 years younger, probably than.
Yeah, definitely.
Then
Definitely
Jeanna?
a teenager.
Yeah, like an older teen, she seemed, although pregnant and married and happy. So let's hope she's an older teen.
Yeah.
But interesting that they grew up in the exact same environment, and one of them, veered way off, started taking drugs at 13, and then had all of the other terrible things happen to her. And Micah, as far as we know, didn't go down the drug road. Maybe because Jeanna protected her.
That's what I'm thinking. But then when Jeanna turned 13, what happened?
Right. Yeah.
And she probably tried to protect her from the drugs because she knew it was bad.
Yeah.
But she'll still hurt herself.
Yeah.
But she doesn't want Micah to.
But thank God that Micah was able to sort of see a way through it. But Jeanna was kind of coming a little from resentment, wouldn't you say? But like, I didn't get a childhood because I was taking care of you.
Blaming her
Yeah.
right out front.
Right.
She wasn't even
Masking
about
it,
at
yeah.
all.
Mm-hmm.
And going around, she blames a lot of people, which I get.
Right. Yeah.
Why?
I do too.
But she still blames a lot of people.
Right.
And it's her thing to deal with too. She was just said, you cheated me out of a childhood because I was busy taking care of you.
And drugs.
Yeah, exactly. And, oh yeah, drugs.
And drugs. Yeah.
And all of these other things. And it's like, you're still the one that's high.
And Micah said, Jeanna said about Micah, I want her to look up to me again. And I was like, well, there's the clue right there. That's the key to, are you going to go to rehab?
Yeah.
Right there.
And it ended up being the key.
Yep. So then we see our friend Jeff Van Vonderen, who did my lines that he's taken a little spin on them. He does say them a little bit differently.
Every
These people
time.
love you like crazy.
He's got to change it up.
They feel like they're losing you. He's changed his tactic just a little bit, but he's still saying the same thing. And, you know, if it works for him, I shouldn't criticize. But when I was thinking about it today, I thought, well, you know, the person who is being intervened upon, you know, the interventionee,
yeah,
probably hasn't heard that as, you know, dozens and dozens of times like we have. So
No.
maybe it's not cliche to them. So, you know,
Right.
then if it works, then go for it. But so he started off in the pre-intervention saying, we are not what he didn't say these exact words because I didn't get it all written down because I was writing so fast I couldn't get it all down. But he said, you know, we are not the things that happened to us. We are defined by how we respond to what's occurred to us.
Yeah.
Because we do have a choice. And actually, we talked about this last night with Celebrity Rehab. And I was thinking about it this morning. They were talking to Sean Young and saying, no. It was, who was it? Sugar on Celebrity Rehab, who was talking about a suicide attempt. And Bob Forrest said, you know what, we don't attempt, people don't think about suicide because they want to die. They think about it because they can't stand living the way they're living anymore.
I thought of that too.
And I said this last night, but I want to say it again because this is a different show from Celebrity Rehab, that the difference between that, I think, speaks volumes. Because when you're choosing suicide, you're just choosing to end it. And that's it. You know, when you go, I want to die, I want to die. But if you look at it as, I'm choosing not to live this way anymore, there are choices there.
Yeah,
there
exactly.
are things that you can do differently. You can actually choose to live your life in a different way.
And you don't have to die.
And you don't have to die. And you can come from a place of personal power and empowerment. You can validate your relationships with other people, whereas suicide invalidates your relationships with people.
Yeah.
And so I just think that's a really important distinction to make, where you're talking about not ending things. It's just coming from a place of power is what I'm trying to say. Because personal power is one of those things that so many of us feel we don't have. I feel like I have no choices. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm at my wit's end. And if it's about making a choice of living your life in a different way, then there are things that can be done. There are steps that can be taken, and you don't feel as much at the whim of the winds.
Yeah. Powerless.
And I think that's important.
Yeah. I think relating to Jeanna, her power, she's completely, and feels like, and maybe just is in the position of complete powerlessness.
Right. But I want to just talk about that a little bit, because one of the things that they talk about in the 12 steps is surrender and being powerless over your disease. But it's a different distinction, because I'm not talking about feeling weak. Once you declare that you're powerless against the disease, then again, you can make choices that are powerful.
Because you're recognizing that
because you're at stake in your life. You can make the choices from here on out. You can choose to live. You can choose to do the steps. You can choose to mend the relationships. You can choose to move forward. So it's
interesting. I never knew that.
And then he talked about if we don't deal with our feelings. That was the Sean Young thing.
Oh yeah.
Okay, that was the one about she
thought it was hilarious.
She thought it was hilarious that she was drinking again, and
so funny.
Quite frankly, I don't think that was a good choice for her. But
no, me neither.
She can choose whatever she wants. But when we don't deal with things, we medicate, because and we've seen it dozens and dozens of times here. I like the numbness. The meth takes away the pain. The liquor takes away the pain. I can go to another place and I don't have to deal with it. But the thing is that you have to deal with it.
Yeah. No matter what, that's just the way you're dealing with it.
We have to figure out how to regulate and manage our feelings. And once we do, they are not calling the shots anymore.
Yeah, that's true. And you just can't control what you feel, but you can control what you do after you feel.
That's right. So the other thing that I thought was interesting about Jeff's pre-intervention, he said, so tomorrow we're going to hand her problem and the consequences of the choices that she's making, and we're going to hand her a solution, and then she gets to pick. So then we move on to the next day, and she walks in the door, and as she walked in the door, I made the prediction.
Oh, yeah.
I said, I think she's going to go.
Yeah, and in the preview, they made it seem like she said no.
No.
So I was like, well, why would they show that?
Right.
But then she must be going. But then I thought, because she said, I don't know, kind of sounded like no.
Yes, correct.
And she and everyone was super emotional. So I thought maybe she would say no, because maybe she's not ready to deal with her son, obviously, who's ready to deal with it. But I thought maybe she wasn't even going to entertain that idea.
The people that I find to be the ones who don't go or who aren't successful are the ones who are the defiant ones.
Yeah.
The ones who are still coming from anger.
Yeah, anger.
And she was sort of resigned, it seemed to me. You know, she walked into the door and he said, these are the people who want to tell you some things. Will you listen? And she said, I will always listen to these people.
Yeah.
And that was the first big clue to me, that she was
that was surprising.
At least open to the possibility. And that's what you have to be in any situation, is open to the possibility that it could be.
And she was so willing to listen. I wonder, well, now everyone's together and organized and making a event out of it. But she was so willing to listen. And
it was so surprising, wasn't it?
I know.
Yeah.
She just walked in there. She was totally just sat down. Thank God that the sister said something.
Micah?
Yeah. Because the dad was saying stuff and it was having an effect, but Micah...
Yeah, she really brought it home. She was the pinch hitter. The one thing that was important that I think needed to be said by Dad was that he was sorry.
Yeah.
That's the thing that so many of these kids are looking for from their parents, because again, they've had a betrayal from their parent when the parenting wasn't there, and God bless him for saying, I'm sorry. You know, it takes somebody who's very aware to be able to say that. And as much as, you know, after you say it about 10 times, it's not so hard to say I'm sorry anymore, to admit you're wrong.
Yeah.
But a lot of times men have issues with that. A lot of times, you know, especially a guy who's been in prison, who's been, you know, when you're not that I know what it's like to be in prison, but I've seen a lot of the, things. It's about defending yourself so much of the time, and because there's a lot of this testosterone clash going on in prison, and for him to come out and just say, I felt like I cheated you of a childhood and I'm sorry, I thought that took a big man to do.
Totally. That is so intense.
Yeah.
That's so intense.
And that's powerful for a child to hear, to say that the child wasn't at fault, the child deserved something better.
And you just didn't do it.
Right, and it's validating them, which is one of those important things that we were talking about before. I can see you tearing.
Yeah. It's just
well, it's a really emotional.
intense.
The whole situation is really emotional. And then Jeff says, you know what? Seriously, people have been dealt crappy hands, but you have been dealt the suckiest of sucky hands.
Yeah. Really.
I mean, this poor girl. And you and I turned to each other and went, yeah, I can kind of see why she'd take drugs.
Yeah.
I'm pretty much,
Totally.
she's like, not that I ever want to condone it, but it really makes sense in her case.
It does. It definitely makes sense.
Oh my God, poor thing.
What else?
But
are you
don't
gonna
ever do it again. Don't ever do it again, Jeanna.
Now you don't have to. And then Jeff says, now you've been dealt a new one.
Right. And so what are you going to do with it?
That was good. That's a good way to put it. That's what I thought.
Now, there was one thing that she said that you reacted to, and I want to ask you about that. She said, I think it was right after her dad spoke. He said, if you will you accept this gift of going to rehab? And she says, I don't know. And then she said, I'm tired of being pushed away by my family. And you reacted to that. What did that say to you, or what did that mean to you?
Well, she said, I'm tired of being pushed away by my family when she is pushing her family away. Like, so many of them are so willing.
Yep.
And there's a lot of anger, and I could see why she wouldn't want, why they would be resentful and aggressive.
Yeah.
But she had spent so much time and energy pushing everybody away and pushing them away and then saying, why are you so far away?
Mm-hmm.
She's pushing them away, and at the same time, she wants them to come.
Right.
And they do here, which is important, and I think is one of the reasons why she went.
Yes.
Because they did all come together for her.
Yes.
And she's testing them for something.
And one of the things to remember that never got dealt with is, they lost a grandchild and a nephew and, someone in their life too. And clearly it's not as important as the bond between a mother and child. But there was this horrible, horrible loss for the entire family. And then after Nicholas was lost, then Jeanna was lost through drugs. So there's just this the whole thing was so sad. I mean,
sad.
I just kept saying that. It's just so sad. And then, so Micah says, you used to protect me. You used to make babysitting money, take me to breakfast.
Oh, God.
That was it. That was it. And she said, you were so much fun to be around. And this was the clincher for me. Micah says, you are worth it.
I know. Oh, my God.
And I'm sorry, I keep hitting this one kind of home because in my experience, everybody I've ever met, everybody who's ever had any kind of issue, and we all do, we all have unworthiness issues somewhere. Some of them are a lot, more at the surface than others, and to have someone say to you, "You're worth it," it's devastating, but it's devastatingly beautiful, I think.
And she's the person that needed to say it.
Yep.
I mean,
of all the people.
Meant it.
Of all the people. Pregnant, getting ready to start the new cycle of life for them, give the opportunity to her sister that her sister had given to her of being an aunt, and saying, you're worth it. I was just like, forget it. How can you argue with that? You have to go.
Exactly. That's the one thing she had to say.
Yep.
She had to go.
And that's what worked, because Jeanna said, I just want to be involved in your baby's life. And if for no other reason than that, that's why I will go. And so she goes.
Yeah. And I think it is for that, but I think there are other reasons.
Of course.
Because she was so willing.
Yeah.
I mean, after they broke down the walls, but she was so on the surface. The pain was so close.
Yes, it was.
Just so.
Yeah.
Anything that was brought up when she got mad, that's where she went.
Yeah, because there, you have to figure out how to deal with it. There's only so much time that you can continue to numb and continue to run away. You just can't run away forever. You can't.
Yeah.
You absolutely can't. It comes. You have to deal with it. This is the message of today.
You're gonna deal.
You
with
have
it.
to deal with it. You either can choose to deal with it or be forced to deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And it's a lot better if you choose.
Yeah. Way easier.
It just is. It
Takes
is
more energy.
It's a lot easier. So then we go to, was it 3 months later?
Yes. 3 months later.
She decides, yes, she's going to Austin, Texas. And
which is pretty. Didn't even realize there's a river thing. I never thought of Texas like that.
Oh, there's lots of pretty parts of Texas.
Yeah, never been.
And I thought it was amazing. She arrives at rehab. It's that night. She's sitting on her bed for the first night, right? And she goes, it's time to be real. And I was like, oh my God, look at her having epiphanies on day one.
I know. I was thinking, is she still high? Is she still, it's just time to be real.
Except a high person would never say that.
Exactly. Because she didn't, the first day, she was just ready.
So yeah, she was absolutely ripe for this opportunity.
Yeah,
and
it was
thank
time.
God. Yep.
It was time.
Yep. So then, and then 87 days later, we see her. And you and I, every single time, all of our fingers and toes and legs and arms and everything are crossed, eyes crossed, just hoping it's going to be okay. And a lot of times it is, thank God.
Most of the times.
And 87 days later, she was unrecognizable. I really
She did
wouldn't
look
have
like a
thought.
different person.
She really did.
She's the most
Dramatic.
Yeah, dramatic change. Mm-hmm. Out of anybody. She was talking and she was making sense. She seemed articulate and like she knew what was going on and that she got a real grasp of herself. It was weird.
It was kind of inspiring, wasn't it?
Oh yeah,
wouldn't you
definitely.
Say? Yeah. It was so fantastic. And she says the weight of 1,000 pounds are off my shoulders.
Yeah. And
go ahead.
Oh, I was thinking how she probably had never really been outside her town before. She said she grew up there and her grandparents grew up there.
That's
and
right.
Everybody grew up there. So I was thinking that must have been a combination of obviously rehab.
Right.
And the fact that she'd never gone anywhere before, experienced other people or other ways of living or anything. And she did seem like wiser, but not older.
No,
wiser.
she looked younger.
She looked younger. Oh man, she looked so bad.
Yeah, she really did look bad before. But one of the other things that I thought was interesting was the woman from the sober living place or the rehab place talked about how she blamed her addiction on the circumstances and loss of her child. And said, but what Jeanna is now realizing is that her addiction had a life of its own.
Yeah.
So it's something that a change of perspective gives you an opportunity to change the scenario.
Yeah, I think that's what it's about. The way that she looks at things and her perspective.
Yep. So, and I wrote one more note here that I absolutely can't read because I didn't finish it.
I wrote a note about the picture with her dad and her sister. And how her sister's not quite due. She's pregnant, and how the dad was overdue because he looks a little bit preggo too. He looks a little bit pregnant.
Yeah, he's a little overdue. Maybe we might have to do a little food intervention on Dad.
Seriously,
a little exercise intervention.
Yeah, I think it's
on him.
Just a little exercise.
But so sober since May 25th, May, June, July, August. So 3.5 months.
Yes, thank God.
Yeah. Isn't that just
phenomenal? Please stay sober.
Stay sober. Don't ever go back. Don't ever go back.
Don't go back.
It's not worth it, and you're worth it to keep sober. Just, oh my God.
I know.
And I'm sure this happened, but I really hope for her that she finally mourned her child in an appropriate way. Learned the skills about how to deal with the feelings. And, kind of figured out how to lay down her path to get through life. Because if she goes back to Madras, She's got, that's the difficult thing for a lot of these people. You go back to your original
Exactly. Just
scenario.
cycle.
Right, and it's easy to fall back into the cycle. But for her, I think it had everything to do with understanding, forgiving herself, right? Understanding how to deal with those feelings, and choosing what's in her future, not in her past. Didn't she?
Yeah.
She talked about that a little bit, didn't she? In the end,
Exactly. She's taking it a day at a time.
right?
She said in her past, her son had died, and how
That
traumatic
had
is.
defined her up to this point,
And she said her son died, but she has to keep going.
right?
And she's gonna keep going, and because it's true, her son died, but she's still alive.
Yeah,
Which that situation, worst situation
ever.
ever that I can think of. And it's true, you have to move on, and that's really scary. I don't know how I would do it, but there's no other choice except for drugs.
Right.
And she doesn't want to die.
Which is ultimately dying, killing yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
And again, robbing everyone else around you
Yeah.
of their relationship with you, like you were robbed of your son. So
Exactly.
that's not a good choice. It's not a good choice.
And the cycle hopefully has been broken, or at least everyone sees what it looks like for it to be broken for a little bit.
Right. Right. And also for her, I think choosing to live is choosing to honor her son's life instead of living with the burden of his death.
Yeah, that's true.
If you can see it that way.
Yeah.
And I know that's not an easy thing to do. Now, I don't know from personal experience anything like what obviously we've all suffered losses, and I can't imagine this loss. But if you can possibly see to the other side of it, of honoring his life and choosing to live yours in an honorable way.
Yeah.
Instead of being burdened by that 1,000-pound weight that she talked about, and burdened about the horror in which he left the world, then you can move forward and make something of your life here. So I think we should take a break now, so Michelle and I can have a drink of water and dab our eyes,
Yes.
and then we'll come back with a little bit of it's kind of news.
Want to find out what the AfterBuzz is about?
Janice is a drama queen.
This is the divide that is going to carry the series.
Give us a call. 424-256-1729. 424-256-1729.
It's television, and they want it to be as dramatic as possible.
I mean, it's Shakespearean.
You never know what goes on behind closed doors.
Find out why AfterBuzz TV is the #1 source for after-show content.
Now, in the eyes of Jimmy, Nucky is a villain.
424-256-1729. 424-256-1729.
I mean, who would you guys rather hear that from? Your husband or your best friend?
The wig will come out.
When the TV show is over, get your AfterBuzz on.
Michelle was talking about my creative swearing that I do.
It gets really creative.
I have two sisters, and they're both teachers, and one's a middle school teacher and one's an elementary school teacher. And so, and I have a nephew who's 11, and then other Ben, who engineers here, he's one of my kidlets. He's in my world as well, and I've known him since the day he was born. And so,
Really?
Yeah, I saw him the day he was born.
Oh, wow.
And I know the story about how he was conceived, but we're not going to talk about that. I'll tell you later. It's a funny story. But so a lot of kidlets and small people, as I call them, short people and small people, in my life who I can't swear around, and so I have to come up with creative ways to express myself. And so holy cats and dogs is one of them. And you were saying John says I don't give a rat's patootie. Yeah. So. Yeah, we come up with some creative ones around our house. And when free, I swear plenty.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard a lot of other creative things that you guys have said, though. So I don't know, but
you got to get creative sometime.
Yeah.
So we don't exactly have news, but kind of news in that I woke up this morning and did my yoga and checked my email and got the well, we both actually, but it came to me.
Well, yeah.
Got the nicest fan letter of all time from Claire in Colorado. And so we just want to say hey to Claire and thank you for making my day. It's probably more than going to make my day. I'm pretty sure it's going to make my month and possibly make my year at the very sweet, kind words. It's wonderful to know that people listen.
Yeah.
Because we rarely get feedback.
Yeah.
And, you know, we can see the numbers on iTunes of people who've downloaded the show. But, you know, you never know people who listen to them all the way through.
Yeah, exactly.
And
or what they think.
Or what they think, exactly. And there are occasional posts on the Facebook page and things like that. But it was so nice to hear from Claire. And she gave us some wonderful compliments and just some feedback that, you know, that what we say
Good
is...
to know.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah, we don't know what people are thinking.
Yeah, and you and I can be a little snarky sometimes,
Yeah.
especially me.
Yeah.
And
we both
thankfully
can.
Claire was not offended by
Yes.
but because sometimes snark is called for.
Yeah.
I find.
I think so too, especially with a lot of the situations. that
Right,
go on.
right. As well as, yeah, on the reality shows and especially the ones that deal with drugs and irrational situations like we see. Yeah, sometimes people need to be called out on the carpet.
Yeah.
And we try and be funny where we can. But you and I both try to come from love and compassion at all times. And sometimes snarky is part of that.
That's true. That's true. It's true. Because
it's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous.
sometimes.
It's ridiculous. And everyone has in them love and compassion. And these people are doing these crazy things and they don't, and everyone around them knows that it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it's just ridiculous. And then it's on TV and everyone sees how ridiculous it is.
Yeah. And, you know, sometimes that's a good thing because if you can see it in a more objective way, perhaps you can make a change and make a different choice next time.
Exactly.
So anyway, we just, again, want to say thanks to Claire in Colorado. And if you guys have any feedback, anything that you know, maybe we're missing, things that you'd like us to talk about, let us know. We love to hear from people.
Yeah,
and,
definitely. Hear anything.
Love to know what you think about the show and just let us know what you think about us.
Yeah,
we
definitely.
accept criticisms as well as praise. We really do. We absolutely want to know what you think. If you think
Send it to Phil if it.
Yeah, exactly. If it's criticism, send it to Phil.
He knows what to do.
He'll clean it up for us so that we don't cry on the floor
exactly.
once we get it. Because we have feelings too. So next week is the finale.
I know.
Now, your AfterBuzz TV
Predictions.
I am hoping that she will stay sober.
Yes.
That's that prediction.
Yes.
Please
please,
stay sober.
please. Oh, for God's sake, please.
I want
stay
you to more
sober.
than anybody else.
I know, it's true, isn't it?
Yeah. She's had the hardest time.
And again, on Celebrity Rehab, Bob Forrest, who's like my new guru.
I know.
I just love what he says. You know, Sugar was fighting going to sober living, and she was really having an issue with it. She was using again, and he said, she was saying, I can't see myself having fun without drugs. And he said, I don't think she understands that being sober is not a restriction. It actually gives you freedom.
Yeah.
And I can so see the freedom as a possibility for Jeanna.
Yeah.
The freedom from all that pain that she's been carrying around forever. So that's the possibility I see for her. And,
Yeah,
and
definitely.
I'm so encouraged by her and actually really inspired by her, I think.
Yeah, definitely.
Because she's had such an incredibly hard road to hoe to this point. And I hope it's all rainbows, puppies, and unicorns and chocolate
Yes,
from here on
please.
out. Please.
Just have it be, please.
Yes.
Just do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so next week is the finale.
Yes. And it looks intense.
It does.
A girl, do you remember her name?
Don't remember her name, nope.
She's dealing with, it looks like a lot of rage.
Yeah.
And psychosis.
Yeah, I think there was some psychosis.
What was it? It was meth? Was it? No, crack?
It was either crack or meth. I'm not sure. Because
And-
sometimes crystal and crack get mixed up in
Me
my
too.
head.
Yeah.
So it was one of those hardcore ones.
Yeah, it was really hardcore.
yeah, there was a lot of throwing and beating and punching and yelling and
out of control.
Yeah, and if it's like finales they do on other TV shows, it's gonna be a wild ride. So
I think that the episode is again just focused on her, which you know that it's gonna be messed up.
Yeah,
if it's just about one person.
Yeah. There's if there's enough content for an hour, we're really gonna get into it.
Yeah.
So looking forward to that. Looking forward to the season finale and seeing what Intervention has in store for us next week. So I guess that's it. So thanks, everybody, for listening. We will see you next week. Thanks again, Claire. We love you. Hugs and kisses, everybody. And stay sober. See you next week.
From producers Kevin Undergaro and Phil Svitek, engineer DJ Jesse Janity, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. If you have questions or comments, be sure to buzz us at info@AfterBuzzTV.com. And you can find us on Facebook or follow us on Twitter by searching for AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.